Come on in, sit back, relax. You're listening to episode 159 of the WealthTech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting, and this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. Our topic for this month is advisor experience. We're talking to wealth tech firms that have developed software that enables a better advisor experience in different categories, including investment analytics, client communications, client meetings, and others. A lot of our work at Ezra Group involves advisor experience, or AX, as it's also called, either for wealth tech firms looking for ways their products can help, or enterprise wealth management firms who come to us looking for a strategy to improve their overall AX, to either reduce advisor churn or increase productivity. I was excited to speak to today's guest, Jim Callan, founder and CEO of Econiq. But before we get into the interview, if you're listening now and you're an executive at a broker-dealer, an asset manager, or an enterprise RIA, you should run, not walk to our website, EzraGroupLLC.com, and fill out the Contact Us form on the homepage to meet with us about your technology platform issues. Our experienced team can assist with software vendor evaluations, systems integrations, improving operational efficiency, improving advisor experience, software implementations, or others. You can take advantage of our free initial consultation by going to EzraGroupLLC.com. All right, a couple of housekeeping tips before we continue. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Please go to our sponsor. Visit our sponsor at their website, Invest in Others, the Invest in Others Charter Foundation. Sorry, that's investinothers.org. All right, now let's get this thing going. I am excited to introduce our next guest on the WealthTech Today podcast. It is Jim Callan, founder and CEO of Econiq. Jim, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Greg. Great to be here, and thanks very much for your time.
Indeed. So where are you calling in from, Jim?
Calling in from our office in Dublin in Ireland, where it's a nice, mild 65 degrees. So nice day here today.
So again, thanks for being here. Could you please give us a 30-second elevator pitch for Econiq?
Sure, Craig. Yeah, well, what we do in Econiq with our solution, the Conversation Hub, is we help financial advisory firms, big and large, make their virtual meetings better, or meetings even face-to-face inside in the office. Our technology is a new screen-based technology, and it solves for three particular problems. One, that in the virtual meeting world that we're in, it's a lot of applications being swapped in and out during these particular meetings. And in fact, the state of the art for a lot of these firms at the moment is a Zoom session and probably some PowerPoint being brought in. So I think the technology itself is in its very, very early days, and there's tremendous opportunity to improve that. Along with that, the second problem is it's particularly difficult, or can be difficult, for clients to follow along to these meetings, given the bumpy nature of the meetings themselves. So the client experience is certainly an area where I think everybody thinks it can be improved. And the final problem we solve for is at the executive level in some of the larger firms, is just making sure that there's good executive visibility over the consistency and quality of these meetings. So that's what we do. Very simple one. We help wealth technology advisory firms run better meetings.
Well, you say it's simple, but it's not. Right? I've seen your technology. There's a lot going on the back end of your product, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the program. So before we jump into the specifics around your product, can you talk a little bit about some of the trends you're seeing? So what was it that drove you to build Econiq? What are some of the trends in terms of meetings and how advisors communicate that you felt needed the kind of product that you built with Econiq?
Yeah, well, you're certainly right there. Making the complex symbol is not quite as easy sometimes as it looks, but the trends, I think, are pretty simple. If we look at the world at large, the trend that's driving it is more people working from home. Financial services is probably splitting itself into digital and advice. And on the advice side, an awful lot more of the meetings are going to be held certainly on screen technology. And within the screen technology, it is exactly that. Can you get to an all-in-one meeting experience where you can just keep the technology that the advisor is using incredibly simple so that the meetings flow naturally? So for us, it's all about meeting flow. And on the client side, again, it's maintaining their focus, and maintaining their focus involves a different type of visual communication that needs to come out from the screen. And we would have moved from a background, which I may chat to you about in a short while, of moving from the communication side over to the visual side. And it's the fusion of those two things, which is the trend that's out there, is you've got to get these meetings to flow naturally. And that's probably the biggest trend that we would see out there in the market.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about your technology is that you did something I haven't seen anyone else do, which was basically build your own sort of Zoom meeting technology into the product. So it's not, they don't have to see Zoom as one app and then their meeting organizing as another app. It's all in one. It's seamless. So you see the videos and you can do things in the middle, or you've got your meeting, your visualized meeting. What made you do that? What was the impetus behind that?
We would be fairly expert from before. If we just go back a bit to the company's background, we would have. We've always been lucky enough to be innovators in interesting solution spaces. So back in the 90s, we built a big international firm out of Dublin, and we were the first into the whole multi-channel Java banking area. So we would have built a lot of solutions for the multi-channel, so call centers, bank branches, internet banking, which is obviously in its early days. And so we were fortunate enough to grow that business into the US, Canada, South America, India, Australia. So very, 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 very big company. And we broke a lot of early technology there. And a lot of it was around the communication side. We built systems from Java components. And now when the thing is all about on-screen technology, there's also a need to look at the screens and see, can you use some sort of the same principle of building meetings up slowly, progressively, so that you can actually follow along to the meeting. So we have a system or a solution on the front that actually progresses through the meetings naturally with the client and is easy for the advisor to use. So that's the genesis of the company. It's our history in communication, but we've augmented it very, very significantly with the visuals. So, and the visuals is a key part of our solution.
Now, this is not your first rodeo, right? This you've done this before. You have built the companies you mentioned. So, how has that experience of building other tech startups and in fintech startups specifically, how has that helped the process of building out Econiq?
Well, I think as you and I have spoken about before, I think it's about if you're on the leading edge, make sure you're not on the leading ledge. So you got to make sure that your technology is not tomorrow's technology today, and that it's usable today by your clients. So it's about your own client's experience, that the system is easy to use, practical, and actually delivers end value for their clients. So that's probably been the biggest learning, is to deliver on your promise. And with a lot of technology being oversold, you need to honor that promise. So our solution is grounded in practical experience and the good, the bad of building a business and looking after servicing your clients and solving a real need. So that's where the experience will come in, we hope.
Yeah, we often hear companies that they build something, then try to go find a need. So as you mentioned, building something for an actual need helps improve your chances of success than just going out and building something and seeing, well, let's see who needs this.
Yeah, because this is not a solution looking for a problem. The problem is very real. The problem is the client experience does need to improve on the meeting side. Advisors are terrific at what they do, tremendous at advising, but the technology is a bit bumpy at the moment. So anything that can smooth that out and get these meetings to flow, and if you can make them more visually engaging, which is what we do, then this is something that's going to be of value to the end clients and the advisors.
And there are many people that are visually motivated. They're much easier for them to adjust to visual presentation information than seeing it in writing or hearing it in audio. So building what you built with the way you've designed it, I think is very interesting. Can you talk about the color coding? So if people go to your website, which is Econiq, ECONIQ.com, you'll see one of the little running software demos here. You can see how the software, which is called the Communications Hub, works. And one of the things you have is you have the whole agenda for the meeting laid out in little boxes, each a different color. Why did you do this color coding, and how does that help the advisor run the meeting more efficiently?
Sure. Obviously, the color itself is appealing, but that is a secondary purpose for the color. The color is there to help you organize and structure those meetings. And if you look at the most basic problem in terms of a communication, it's basically, can I see where I'm going to be going along in a meeting? And the colors we use for the different parts of the meeting. So we have a 4-color coding system. Blue is basically organizing the agenda and the topics, and the colors change based on the conversation moments or the conversation streams that are happening inside in the meeting itself. So blue gives you organization and structure. Purple is the color when the advisor is asking, educating, or reviewing the client. So it's basically the general communication about the firm and the value of that firm to their end client. Green is the whole discovering part of the meeting, always a very tricky area to get clients to impart information about their financial data, their life events, their past history, their hopes and dreams. And any way to relax the client, get them to open up, is obviously of huge value to both the client and the advisor. And we also make sure, with another one of our colors red, that in the confirmation part of a meeting, in the wrap-up part, that everything is done to act in the best interest of the client, which is obviously something which is tremendously valuable on the whole regulation side. So that's the use of our color. So it's to visually signpost the conversation for people to know where they are during a meeting, but it also allows us to gather a huge amount of meeting quality intelligence, which we can use to improve the meeting. So where people are being consistent, inconsistent, where they can focus, where they can improve. Our clients like to dwell as they progress through a meeting. So it's hugely important data that can be gathered for improvement purposes.
So you're leading me right into my next question. Let's talk about meeting quality. How do you, how does that work? How does the meeting quality function work? The MQ, and how do you figure it out? And how can firms use that as a tool?
Yeah, look, every meeting is tracked and scored for meeting quality in those 4 categories. In other words, how well you're communicating, how consistent and ordered you are, how well you're connecting with the client, and how good you are on the whole safety for the client side. So that we derive from that based on the paths that you've taken through the meeting. How well your coverage has been, how well your consistency has been, what time you've spent in certain areas. We're able to attribute scores to each of those 4 areas, and we roll them up into an overall score called meeting quality. So it's something that we can measure, track, and look to improve by either changing the conversation flows within the meeting, by changing the structure of the meeting, by changing the type of questioning. What we do on the visual side is not just beyond the color coding itself. We actually use a mix of in our conversation flows, which are attached to the topics, which in turn are tied to the agendas. We use a mix of phrasing, video, multimedia players, and the ability to jump to the underlying systems and return to the underlying system, so you get this all on one platform. So it's the measurement of how smooth or how flowing that particular meeting is, which ultimately is our objective, is to make those meetings flow naturally. So that's what the MQ is. It's a measure of how well those meetings flow naturally.
So when you're measuring meeting quality, does it come right out at the end of the meeting, and do you give the advisor recommendations, or is it more of an enterprise level function where the management sees, hey, here's our MQ, here's how it's been progressing over time, and now here's some things you can do to change it?
Yeah, that's precisely it, Craig. We would look to both let the advisor be aware of how the performance has gone in that particular meeting, but it's as much an executive tool to encourage consistency and improvement of performance, and there's a coaching module as part of the solution. So our enterprise solution brings with it coaching and brings with it a tremendous amount of analytics using the rich source of data that we have from the actual score itself. So we'd be able to pinpoint areas where, from a consistency perspective, you need to improve. But equally, we can identify areas where the ability to offer additional services, add pieces to the conversation may result in. So it's bottle the best. It's basically, look, try and get everybody performing consistently, but equally, with the best, how can they improve? And quite interestingly, one of the trends we do see, not unsurprisingly, is even the best forget. They forget to cover certain parts of a meeting because they're very, very complicated. They can be very emotional. So it's that structure and the blue that I mentioned to you, the agenda and the topics that can move across the meeting, having that structured and the ability there to improve that structure and the conversations that flow thereafter is tremendous.
Yeah, I can see how that would be really helpful, especially with the meeting agenda preparation. Building out your agenda with the different color codes would help the advisor basically not to forget what they want to talk about, right? Because it's all on the screen and it walks them through it. As you said, that advisors are busy, they're moving back and forth between meetings, maybe they get a little distracted. So having it all on the screen and color coded, walking you through the agenda sounds really helpful. Let's talk more about trends. What are some of the other trends you're seeing in the market and some of the trends that you noticed that drove you to create Econiq?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest trend is the need. There's a lot of disparate systems being used in terms of the client engagement, or the client experience. So the ability to get that into an all-in-one platform that interoperates with the underlying systems is absolutely critical. But I think that's the technology trend that I think that is the strongest out there. But on the human side, the need to get these, the biggest trend we see is trying to get on-screen technology as close to a human meeting, and that's the challenge. So the challenge is, as I said, is just how can you get these meetings to flow, and that's going to be a mix of not just the phrasing, but the visuals that you use. So that's all about timing and sequence and the design of these meetings. So the biggest trend is really to get that all-in-one consistency out there, but it has to be with genuine visual engagement. And visual engagement, as you said earlier, is far more effective. And clients, as we're beginning to see with the data that we have collected, they are more interested in feeling safe and secure about how they're doing and being taken through the meeting, and probably less interested in parts of the meeting where maybe the advisors would like to dwell on some of the more data-rich or performance issues. So understanding where clients want to dwell and understanding where clients want to, and some clients will want to be very deep into the reports, which we can bring into these naturally flowing meetings, of course, but most don't. And that's the data that we're beginning to gather. I think in our data that we've got, about 78% of the clients are less interested in spending time on the reporting than they are getting through discussing their own personal issues and hopes and dreams. So that's one of the more interesting trends that we've been able to affirm from our earlier experience in retail banking, where the conversation hub is also used.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think we've seen across the board that clients don't care about the reports. They're not interested in looking at charts and graphs. The days of walking the client through a 100-page, financial plan or performance report are over, because most clients really don't care about that. Instead, they want to discuss their hopes and dreams, their goals, and that's where we believe more advisors need to be focusing, is on becoming goals-based and more holistic and financial planning focused, financial planning led, rather than investment advice led. One thing you mentioned, that one of the all-in-one features of Econiq is that you interoperate with underlying systems. Can you talk about which underlying systems you interoperate with, and what type of, and how does it manifest itself? So what would advisors see when they use your system, and how it interacts with their other systems?
Yeah, I mean, the systems that it naturally sits on top of, CRM systems, the financial planning systems. So we would have data integrations with Redtail, Wealthbox, Salesforce, eMoney, Right Capital. So we're building those out, and more to come. But how it manifests itself in terms of a naturally flowing meeting. If you do need to go to the financial planning tool, you can do a round trip to the financial planning tool. It'll take you there and take you back, and use the piece of that financial planning tool that you might require. So there's a very seamless, what we call jumps back and forward to the others.
That's excellent. And of course, at Ezra Group, we're really big into integrations. We really want to see more firms build out integrations with key app advisor tools. So we're always happy to hear when firms like yours are building out these connectivity to make more of a seamless environment for the advisors, because that's really what they want. They want the functionality. They don't really want it separate in different applications. They really want it together, or to appear seamless together, or for the systems to send the data where it needs to go, rather than them having to push a button, copy, paste, download a file, upload a file. Because every time they do that, it's just one little bit of extra work for them, one little bit of manual effort that's taking time away from other things they can be doing, and one more opportunity for mistakes or errors when you're manually moving data in between other systems. So can you talk more about trends when it comes to organizing and structuring meetings? What are you seeing from your advisors who are using the Econiq platform most heavily? How have they changed how they're organizing and structuring their meetings?
The first thing in terms of the use case, well, let's just take, for example, a typical smaller advisory firm. The first thing in terms of organizing their meetings is to understand how many they have. And that's the first thing. Sounds very simple, but pretty basic and very helpful. So the whole range of meetings you can put inside in a conversation hub, from the earliest introductory meeting all the way through to the review meetings, or even any ad hoc meetings that will come. So the first thing to do is to figure out what meetings. So that's the first part of the process. And within that, and again, this is all templated. What topics would you have within those meetings? So the design and structure of those meetings is remarkably quick. So it's all the meetings that you'll be having, up to and including some self-directed meetings. So if you do want to push out in a meeting structure information that you want to gather from the client in advance, or newsworthy information that you want to push out, it also does that. So it's all the meetings, all the templates. That would be the classic use case. And it's basically for anything to do with the screen-based technology that you have in your office where you want to be hosting meetings. So that's the standard use case. And as you move into the larger enterprise firms, you will see that the whole meeting quality and the consistency is also is a required and mandatory need there. So there'll be a difference in the use case between those two types of firms. Well, that's the typical use case, Craig.
Yeah, I would imagine that we work with a lot of enterprise clients at Ezra Group. About half our clients are broker dealers or very large RIAs. And I can see that this kind of product will be very helpful when you've got 100 or more advisors in your company. How do you know how well meetings are going? How do you know if they're consistent? Are they running? Because you really want you want everything to be consistent, and you want standardization. If you're going to scale, if every single advisor is running meetings completely differently, then it still may work, but most likely it's not going to be the best output. So is that something that enterprise firms can take advantage of, where they can look at the MQ across their advisors and identify the outliers?
Right across the organization. And what you'll tend to find when we've looked at the analytics there, it works in two phases. We would have a program of improvement, a methodology of improvement that we call the MQ way. And we would look in the first phase of that, and what you do tend to notice is the inconsistencies or the parts of meetings that may have been designed up front and actually don't get used. And that's usually valuable. So coverage would be the first part of the meeting behaviors that we would look at. And that would tend to settle in two of our colors, in the greens and the purple. So actually they stand out straight away. So that's the first thing that would happen. And then you're looking to, and you could be taking this from other systems, Craig, you'd be looking at opportunities to insert conversation flows into the topics where there are decent opportunities to add additional value to the relationship. So there's a lot of very good systems providing notifications in terms of additional services or benefits to offer to clients, and the Conversation Hub is intelligent. It will take those in and automatically insert them into the next set of meetings that a client is having. So this ability to do that through APIs is something we'd be particularly excited about. But equally, the ability when you're in the Conversation Hub, the advisor can prepare the meeting in advance. So with a click and drag interface, you can drag that particular talking point or conversation flow, attach it to a topic, and it'll be included in the meeting for you. So that's particularly exciting. And we also would bring in visuals from other companies who are on the tech stack, whose visuals are currently used and are useful. And there are a good number of firms there. Sure, and for the larger firms, with most of the integrations now in place with the bigger firms, the length of time to design up these meetings is probably about 3 hours. So it's very, very quick to get up and see how your first set of meetings would look. We would recommend that firms pick their most valuable meeting first. We would visually draw up that meeting with the firm. It should connect automatically to the tech stack, the standard elements of the tech stack, and we would take it from there. We would start measuring MQ, which will attest to the experience and ease of use for both the advisor and the client. So it's a very, very quick integration with a lot of the heavy lifting, as you said, contained inside in the platform. So again, a very, very fast implementation.
We like to hear that. We like fast implementations. Nobody wants to sit around and spend months and months implementing something. That is fantastic. What about smaller firms? How would they work with you? How if I'm a small RIA, let's say I've got 10 or less advisors, what's my use case for bringing in Econiq?
Again, it would be probably more working directly with us to design the meetings. We would again pick what we call the most valuable meeting. It tends to vary across firms, so you'll see them sometimes looking at the meetings that they're using for their meeting surges. They could be doing it for the first of their introductory meetings. It could be for the annual reviews. So there'll always be a meeting pain point there that's identified quickly. So pick your first meeting, work with us to design it up, and again, with us connected into most of the tech stack that the smaller firms would be using, you'll with 3 single 1-hour design sessions with some of our design masters, you'll be ready to go. So it's not dissimilar to the enterprise experience as it should be. And if some of the smaller firms want to use MQ, they're more than welcome to do that. Okay.
Oh, that was a good point. We forgot about the design. So tell me about the design aspect of the system and what you can and can't design, and what your team can help advisors or broker dealers design about the Econiq software.
Sure. I mean, the power of the system is all in the design, and that's what you do when you're using the same set of tooling when you're preparing for a meeting to just get the flow right. So how will the meeting move from left to right? How will we get to all the talking points? The designer, and we have an upcoming release at the end of October when the designer is going to be fully self-serve with an enhanced set of templates at both meeting structure side and at topics side. But I think it's important to explain that the topics themselves are extremely rich. So out of the topics comes these conversation flows. And so that's what people will select from when they design these meetings, and they're presented in a very intuitive way. So when we get to that particular situation, the independent advisors can operate the system themselves. So we'll have both the independents and the enterprises able to design the meetings. We're obviously there for consultancy, but I think that design is terribly important, Craig, that you mention it. I mean, having a visual feel for how a meeting flows, we effectively move from left to right. You will always see the active path that the conversation is following, and what it in effect is as you're moving from left to right with our progressive screen design, as we call it, moving through the phases of a meeting. These conversation flows all overlay on top of each other. So you're bringing all possible meeting flows, conversation flows into the one space, and the space, it's the same platform, obviously from a technical perspective, but the space that you're dealing with is actually the screen. And that's the challenge that we've solved, is we take all these meeting flows and we're able to collapse them and expand them as you progress through a meeting, all contained within the actual physical diameter of the screen. So that's the innovation, and that's the patent that we actually have for our technology. So you can describe it many ways, but I think if you look at it, you'll see that it flows naturally, but equally it's been described to us many ways, but overlapping dialogue trees is probably not a bad way to describe it either. And I mean, if you've got all the trees and all possible points that your conversation is going to go to inside in a meeting, and then you're going to be in much better shape to handle clients' needs and hopes.
You should definitely be in better shape if you've got these tools, and a tool like Econiq, I can imagine. So we are out of time. Tell everyone listening where they can find more information about Econiq.
Yeah, www.econiq.com, and you can have a look at our solution there, the Conversation Hub. And we're happy to offer it to you on a trial basis, and we look forward to continuing to work with more clients, which is what's happening for us at the moment. And with the new releases that we'll have out by the end of the year, we're looking forward to helping a lot more people deliver a better client experience, which is ultimately what the end of the game is.
Jim, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thanks very much, Craig. I really appreciate the time.
Hey, it's Craig again. This was a great interview. I really enjoyed talking to Jim. And here are my 3 takeaways from this episode. Number 1, visual meeting structure is a unique way, I think, of approaching this problem. We like how Econiq has put their product together, combining the Zoom product along with meeting agenda, meeting structure, color-coded, easy to use. We think you should check it out. It's not going to be for everyone, but it's going to be for those advisors who feel they approach things more from a visual point of view. And I think they're really going to like it. 2 is measuring meeting quality. It's a great idea in practice, especially for enterprises that want to improve the standardization of meetings across many hundreds or even thousands of advisors. And finally, client experience trends. We're seeing a lot more of this throughout the industry, where firms are looking to improve their client experience, looking for different tools and technologies to make that happen. And the biggest problem is the disparate systems just don't work together well, which kind of leads me into our Ezra Group WealthTech integration scores, which you can check out at ezragroupllc.com. So that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the WealthTech Today podcast. Please go to our website, ezragroupllc.com. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage, subscribe to our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, analysis, links, info. You will not be disappointed. Thanks for listening. Talk to you all again next time.